Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today we are traveling back 4,500 years to the limestone plateau of Abu Sir, Egypt. I want you to picture the scene. The sun is beating down on the desert sand. It is the Old Kingdom, the era of the pyramid builders. In the distance, the monuments of the 5th dynasty are rising toward the sky. But we are not looking at the stones or the pharaohs or the monumental architecture. We are looking inside a small, cool, mud brick office. Sitting on the floor is a man. He is silent, he is focused, he is a scribe. To the people outside, the farmers toiling in the Nile mud, the laborers dragging massive limestone blocks, this man is living the dream. He is a member of the elite. He is a keeper of secrets. He is exempt from the backbreaking physical labor that defines life for 99% of the population. He will never feel the whip of an overseer. He is guaranteed a tomb for eternity. In the ancient Egyptian text known as the Satire of the Trades, the profession of the scribe is glorified above all others. It says, "Be a scribe." It saves you from toil. It protects you from all manner of labor. But if we look closer at this man sitting in the cool shade, the reality is much darker. If you could see his face as he dips his pen into the ink, you would see a grimace of chronic pain. If you listened closely, you might hear the cracking of his jaw. If you watched him stand up at the end of the day, you would see him struggle to straighten his legs, his knees screaming in protest. For decades, Egyptologists have studied the words these men wrote, marveling at their administrative genius. But until very recently, almost no one looked at the men themselves. No one looked at the physical cost of their intellect. That changed with a groundbreaking study published in 2024. A team of anthropologists, led by Petra Bruckner-Havelkova from the Czech Institute of Egyptology, decided to stop reading the papyrus and start reading the bones. They conducted a massive forensic analysis of skeletal remains from the necropolis of Abu Sir. These weren't just random bones. They analyzed 69 adult males buried between 2700 and 2180 BC. Using tomb inscriptions and statues, they were able to positively identify 30 of these men as career scribes. They compared these 30 scribes against a control group of 39 other men, men of similar high social status, but who did not perform scribal duties. What they found shattered the romantic image of the pristine, pampered intellectual. They found that the cushy office job of the ancient world came with a brutal physical price. The skeletons of the scribes were a catalog of agony. They showed statistically significant rates of degenerative osteoarthritis, stress fractures, and bone deformations that were completely absent in the control group. This study, titled Ancient Egyptian Scribes and Specific Skeletal Occupational Risk Markers, reveals a history of pain written on bone. And the most terrifying part? The ailments of these ancient scribes eerily mirror the health crises of the modern digital age. This is the story of the Scribes Burden. Let's break down exactly what this job did to the human body, starting with the most surprising discovery, the jaw. When we think of occupational hazards for writers, we think of hands and wrists. But for the Egyptian scribe, the damage started in the skull. The researchers found that the scribes suffered from extreme osteoarthritis in the temporomandibular joint, or the TMJ, the hinge connecting the jawbone to the skull. In the general ancient population, TMJ issues were relatively rare. In the scribes, they were rampant. Why? Why would an administrator have a destroyed jaw? The answer lies in their technology. We often picture ancient writing involving a quill dipped in ink, or perhaps the reed calamus used in later periods. But during the Old Kingdom, the tool of the trade was the rush pen. This was made from the stem of a plant called Juncus maritimus. This plant is tough, fibrous, and woody. To create a writing instrument, a scribe couldn't just cut the stem. He had to chew it. Every single morning, A scribe would take a fresh, hard rush stem and gnaw on the end of it. He had to crush the fibers with his teeth until they frayed out to form a fine, soft, brush-like tip. As the day went on, the ink would dry and clog the fibers, or the tip would wear down. So he would cut off the end and start chewing a new section. Imagine doing that every day for 30 or 40 years. The repetitive mechanical stress of gnawing on tough plant matter placed an enormous load on the jaw joint. It ground down the cartilage and reshaped the bone. The study confirms that for the Egyptian scribe, the act of writing literally left a bad taste in his mouth and a permanent scar on his skull. They were grinding their jaws into dust just to keep their pens working. Now, let's move down the body to the neck and the spine. If you've ever visited the Egyptian wing of a major museum, you have likely seen the famous statue of the seated scribe. He sits cross-legged, a papyrus scroll stretched across his kilt, looking alert. But the bones tell us that this posture was an idealization. The reality was a slump. To write precise, tiny hieroglyphs or hieratic script on a scroll resting on his lap, a scribe had to hunch forward deeply. The human head weighs roughly 4.5 to 5 kilograms. When you tilt your head forward to look down at your lap, the effective weight on the cervical spine increases dramatically due to the shift in the center of gravity. Does this sound familiar? It should. This is exactly what modern doctors call tech neck. We get it from staring at smartphones. The ancient scribes got it from staring at papyrus. The Abusir skeletons showed significant degeneration in the cervical vertebrae, the neck bones, and the upper thoracic spine. This wasn't just bad posture, this was structural damage. The constant tension required to stabilize the head for hours on end caused the vertebrae to grind together, leading to spondylosis. The silence of the ancient administrative office was likely punctuated by the sound of stiff necks cracking and men rubbing their sore upper backs. But the damage didn't stop at the neck. We have to look at the right hand, the hand of authority. The scribe's right hand was his livelihood, and the study shows that he paid for it with the microscopic destruction of his joints. The researchers found distinctive osteoarthritis in two key areas, the right shoulder and the right thumb. Let's look at the shoulder first. The damage was concentrated in the clavicle and the humerus. This tells us about the ergonomics of their workspace, or rather, the lack of it. Scribes did not have desks. They did not have armrests. When they wrote, their right arm was often unsupported, hovering over the papyrus to make delicate brushstrokes. This required the muscles of the rotator cuff and the shoulder to remain in a state of static tension for hours at a time to stabilize the arm. Over decades, this ground down the articular surfaces of the collarbone and the shoulder socket. They were holding a static flex for an entire career. Then there is the thumb. The rush pen was held in a tight pinch grip. To control the soft brush-like tip of the pen, the scribe had to squeeze hard. The study identified significant wear on the trapezium and the first metacarpal bone, the base of the thumb. This is the ancient equivalent of carpal tunnel syndrome, or what we might call gamer's thumb today. Every tax record, every royal decree, every magical spell from the Book of the Dead was paid for with the erosion of the scribe's hand joints. Finally, we have to look at the legs. This is where the forensic analysis gets incredibly specific. While the upper body battled the strain of writing, the lower body battled the strain of sitting. Chairs existed in ancient Egypt, but they were reserved for high-status leisure or specific ceremonial contexts. The daily grind of bureaucracy happened on the floor. But the scribes didn't just sit cross-legged in the tailor's seat style we see in statues. The skeletal analysis revealed they frequently used a kneeling squatting position. In this position, the left leg was folded under the body to create a seat, while the right leg was stepped up, with the knee raised. The papyrus would then be placed on the right thigh, turning the leg into a makeshift table. This asymmetry destroyed their lower bodies in very specific ways. The scribes exhibited what researchers call squatting facets. These are flattened surfaces on the talus bone of the ankle, formed when the joint is compressed in extreme flexion for long periods. They also found deep indentations in the kneecaps or patella. The right knee, used as the desk, showed different wear patterns than the left, which bore the weight of the torso. Imagine the agony of standing up after a 10-hour shift in that position. The stiffness, the numbness, the creaking joints. It must have been an ordeal every single evening. So what does all of this tell us? It brings us back to the paradox of privilege. It is easy to look at these ailments and feel pity, but we have to contextualize them. In the Old Kingdom, life was short. Manual labor was brutal. The sun was unforgiving. Being a scribe was still the best job you could get. But the propaganda of the time, texts like the Satire of the Trades, lied about the physical toll. The text mocked the metalworker, saying his fingers were like the claws of a crocodile. It mocked the mason, saying his loins were ruined. It promised the scribe safety from toil. The skeletal evidence from Abu Yasha proves that this was a lie. The scribe was protected from the sun and the whip, but he was not saved from toil. His toil was internal. While the peasant's back broke under the weight of stone, the scribe's neck broke under the weight of administration. While the soldier's body was scarred by battle, the scribe's jaw was destroyed by his own pen. They traded acute trauma for chronic degeneration. And this is where the story becomes a mirror for us. The most haunting aspect of the Abusir study is not how different these men were from us, but how similar they are. When we list their ailments, TMJ disorders, cervical spine degeneration, shoulder impingement, thumb arthritis, we are listing the exact same diagnoses that fill the waiting rooms of modern orthopedists and physical therapists today. We have replaced the rush pen with the mouse and keyboard. We have replaced the papyrus scroll with the smartphone and the monitor. We have replaced the cross-legged squat with the office chair, but the result is the same. We too hunch forward, straining our cervical spines. We too suffer from repetitive strain in our dominant hands. We too grind our jaws, though usually from stress rather than chewing reeds. The ancient Egyptian scribe is the direct ancestor of the modern knowledge worker. His skeleton serves as a 4,500-year-old warning. The human body was evolved to move, to hunt, to run. It was not evolved to sit, freeze, and focus for endless hours, whether that focus is on a hieroglyphic tax record or a spreadsheet. The pyramids of Abusir are crumbling now. Their limestone casings have been stripped away by time and thieves, but the skeletons of the men who tallied the stones, who organized the labor, and who recorded the glory of the kings remain. Thanks to the work of the Czech Institute of Egyptology, these silent witnesses have finally spoken. They tell us that the bureaucracy of ancient Egypt, the machine that built one of the greatest civilizations in history, was powered by human flesh and bone. The beautiful hieroglyphs we admire in museums were not just art. They were physical feats of endurance. Every line was a pinch of the thumb, every column a hunch of the neck, every brushstroke a grind of the jaw. The scribe paid for his immortality with his body, leaving behind a legacy of knowledge and a skeleton scarred by the very tools that built his world. In the end, the scribe's burden teaches us that greatness is never free. It is always carried on the shoulders and the necks and the knees of those who serve. That is the reality of the Abusir revelation. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.